We're so excited you joined us on today's live stream. To be included in the drawing, make sure you make a comment and be sure to add #mud. Let's get started.
Hello, everybody. We see we got Dustin just left the place. My name is Dave Solberg, and welcome to our Talking RV Tech Talk here at rvtravel.com. I'm your host, along with Dustin from California RV Specialties out in Lodi, California. Ashley is behind the scenes, helping with the transfer and putting the questions up and so forth. Chuck is up in Canada right now, and I'm not sure if he's joined us for sure or not, but we are going Zachless tonight because Zach had a little bit of a fall and hit his head, and he's got some headaches. So kind of like football, he's under concussion protocol, and we're putting him into the medical tent and making sure that he's got to stay out for two games, I'm pretty sure. But hopefully Zach will be with us next week and add a little flavor. Add a little hair to our
youth, yeah.
Add some hair to our broadcast. But we appreciate everybody coming out. It's been a great week for questions. We've had some really good ones that have come in here in the last week or so. Check out those different blogs and articles that everybody's been doing. Let me bring up some here that we just got. I thought were very interesting. We're going to start with this one since we don't have any questions yet up on the board. This is one that came in, and the lady has a Class A motorhome, and I'll just kind of paraphrase. When they turn the propane valve open, they smell gas. They smell propane. And keep in mind, propane, it's got, whether ethylene or capital, or I butchered that up pretty good. Rotten eggs and sulfur smell. And what she didn't say is whether it was inside or outside the rig. It's, so I'm assuming when she turns the propane on at the valve, she smells a little propane there, and she wonders, is that normal? It does it all the time, whether it's full or empty. And the first thing I told her is anytime you smell propane, shut that valve off. Don't take any chances. Make sure that you take it seriously. Get it into a certified or a qualified technician in there. One of the things that I like to do is and I'm going to get back to remove this here. This is called Home Flex, and this is a LP leak detector that I got through Amazon. I use that in the spring when I bring the unit out from storage, and I just want to check all the fittings. Instead of taking the solution and doing every single one and looking for the bubbles, this is a lot quicker way to do that. And also, I think, do you want to talk a little bit, new product that's out in the market that I think is outstanding in this situation is called Gas Stop. Yeah. And, they've got them for the POL, which is your DOT cylinder. This one happens to be for a Class A or C motorhome with an ASME tank. And, if there's any kind of leak in that system, that will stop it. Now, the one that's open. What I would think is this probably happened in this situation is you've got either a weak or faulty regulator. You could also have, you have the OPD, it's called, the fill protection device, and so some of those valves. So I do know I've smelled occasionally a little bit of LP when I turn the tanks on, but it doesn't last. But again, make sure you check that system out. If you have any kind of gas valve, and turn all your appliances off. That's the big thing. That's the big thing. So I've got another question for you, Dustin, that kind of follows into the gassing. I get this question all the time. What's your opinion of traveling down the road with the LP on?
Well, they tell you you're not supposed to do it. It's not like gas for air, right? So if you get your refrigerator up to operating temperature, if you're going to travel somewhere in a short distance, like say 5-6 hours, it's going to keep its temperature. So you could go ahead. That's a safe way to do it, is just operate it, shut it off, make sure that everything that you're putting in it is cold before putting it in it. Yep. That'll help keep the temperature in it. But I mean, lately I've seen so many fires, Dave, on RVs, and I've seen, units that have blown up. So, and we're getting ready to do an article about that too on RV Travel. Going back to that gas stop that you had, what's nice about this is the gauge you can turn. So no matter where you put it on your tanks, and the other one that you had was for the motorhome, right?
Yep. Had the same
that
thing.
one right there. So in that example, that customer that has that unit that's leaking, when you install that into it, even though it has a different end on it, when you install that into it, if you turned on the gas and then this thing has a push button, so it depresses, you prime it 3 times, then you could turn around and shut your gas back off. And, if you have a leak, it's going to show, because it's going to go down into what they say the low mode. If it loses the pressure, then you definitely have a leak on the house side of it.
Yeah. See, when I was at Winnebago, we used to put manometers in, like they were called, and they were just a dial with a gauge in it, and you set it like a barometer. So you had one free moving needle, and then you set it, and then you come back the next morning, and if the needles weren't still aligned, you knew you had a leak. It was guaranteed, and that was they quit putting those things in, and had then they put the LP leak detector in, which goes off when you spray perfume or any kind of Somebody even said when their dog went by and passed gas, it set the LP leak detector off. I don't.
Flea collars.
Yeah.
But so the chemical that's in that you were saying, it's called ethanol mercaptive.
Yep.
It's basically a garlic byproduct so that we can smell propane. We really can't smell natural propane by itself.
Right.
So as the temperatures are, increasing and decreasing, propane expands and contracts. So when they're opening the valve, they may smell a little bit of it for a second based off of the vent that's on it.
Mm-hmm.
But after that, it should, if it's like you're saying, if you can smell it and it's strong, shut it off. Something's leaking.
Okay. Yep. You're right. So Barbara said, good evening. Hi, Barbara. Welcome back again. Michael.
Hey, Barbara.
Right. I did mention it was called the Clarity Defender product.
Oh,
and we talked about it. And since Chuck was heading up to Canada, we ran out of time, and I will get that in, but it's called Clarity Defender, and it's something we've been trying to get into Chuck's store here. It's a nanofilm. They've been bought out by somebody out of Cleveland now, but they have the same product available, and but it's Clarity Defender with a CLARITY, and I think it might even be on Amazon, and hopefully we can do a little bit of research and do that. Let me touch real quick on the propane, driving with propane, because we've done a lot of research on that. I helped develop the RV Safety Education Foundation safety training program, and we worked with the NFPA and most of the fire chiefs and captains and departments that I talked to said that anytime they have an RV in an accident, the very first thing is they run to the propane tank and shut it off, because that's the big problem. And that's where that gas stop comes in. So handy. Even though your propane system has an excess flow valve built into that POL or that connector. And I do have, there it is right here. We've taken one of these. I know it's hard to see, but we took a grinder and we pulled it apart, and there is a little spring inside here that will get about 75% of leaks. But I don't want to take a chance with that other 25%. And that's where the gas stop comes in so well. But I get that question all the time, should I drive with propane on? And we probably have all done it, but I started researching a little more into this. And the reason you drive with propane on is to cool the fridge down. That's about the only thing that you're using that for. And you're right. If we've done tests on both Norcold and Dometic and brought them down to 34 degrees and let them set, and 6 hours later, they were still right at 40 degrees.
Yeah.
And so if you leave that door shut, and but the key to that though is that you have to have that refrigerator has to be operating properly, efficiently. You have to have something in the refrigerator. The first time we did it, we had nothing in there, and it shot up past 50 degrees in a heartbeat. So I called Dometic. I said, "Hey, what's the deal?" And they said, "Well, what'd you have in it?" I said, "Nothing." So, well, it's an absorption refrigerator, so you have to have something. We put a 5-pound bag of ice in the top, and then we put just some moderate stuff in the bottom of it and got a fan to circulate, and it worked good. Now, if you choose to travel with propane, it's not illegal. It's just a matter of what you feel comfortable,
It's
safe
your
with.
personal preference.
Yeah.
You're taking your own risk.
But the thing you have to remember is that if you drive with your propane on and you're running that refrigerator on that LP mode, if you pull into a gas fueling station, you have to shut that off because you have an open flame in that rig, and so that is law. So most states don't have a law against traveling with propane because you see buses and alternative fuel vehicles are doing that now. They do have certain bridges. I know the Washington Bridge, I got stopped at one point. The Lincoln Tunnel, there's certain tunnels that won't let you do that. So let's get back here. Ashley just put up, what do you think about the fridge defend to guard against fires? How about you, Dustin?
I was just looking it up because I wasn't familiar with that.
Oh, and I've run into it a few times. What the fridge defend is that it is kind of a temperature sensing device, and both Norcold and Dometic have redesigned their refrigerators that has a temperature sensor that will shut the unit off in case of high temperatures and to try and keep fires from happening. And to me, it's really a Band-Aid from what's actually happened. So everybody's all excited about the recalls and the fires and everything that's happened out there. Well, and again, I've done extensive research on this. I know the Norcold people. I started when I was at Winnebago with it just because we were seeing some issues. And here's what's happening is you have a refrigerator that the way it works is it's got a boiler assembly that has ammonia, water, sodium chromate for lubricating, and hydrogen. And so those are in this vessel, and they get heated by either the flame or the heating unit element on 120. It gets it really hot. It creates a vapor. It goes up into the evaporator coil, and it flashes, and it pulls heat out of that in your cooling unit. And then it makes its way, zigzags back through, goes down the condenser, and a whole bunch of other chemical reactions that happen in there that I won't bore you with. But it's there's no moving parts in this thing, and it makes its way back down by gravity. So your refrigerator has to be level 6 degrees side to side, 3 degrees front to back. Otherwise, that's when it turns back to a liquid, it can't make its way back down. And, the biggest problem is running these refrigerators when they're not level. And what happens is people come to their house with their refrigerator or their rig. They put it in the driveway, which is at a slant, so the water can drain out almost always. They run that refrigerator, that unit for, plug it in and run it for 2-3 days to get the refrigerator to cool down, pack everything up. Well, they don't level it because they're not sleeping in it, so they don't even think about it.
Yeah.
And
same thing if you're going uphill or downhill.
Yep. So what happens is that solution then can't make its way back in the zigzag, so it pools on one of the corners, and it starts to get hot. It starts to flake, and then it starts to block. And the more you do that, the longer you do that, the more it flakes, and it gets to a point where it virtually won't make it back. You hear a gurgling sound. So that cooling unit, that cooling unit on a normal basis will run somewhere up into the 300-400 degrees. It's that hot. We've done tests on it where we hit it with the infrared, and normally it will do that. When it's blocked, it will get up into 1,000 degrees.
Yeah.
And then what happens is that you've got manufacturers that stuff insulation around that refrigerator cavity, and you pull the refrigerator out and you see this burn mark up there, and people say, "Oh, my refrigerator's starting on fire." And the fires that have been documented in most cases, and I'm not saying it's every case, but most of the cases were early on when that boiler assembly got a crack in the tubing, and that fire on the LP side of it, would start a fire. And I think the last number I heard, 95% of the units that had those old style have been recalled with a temperature shutoff up in the top.
Yeah.
And they get a bad rap because if that cooling unit's blocked, it's going to get hot. and then it's going to shut off. And people say, "Oh, the thing just shuts off all the time." Well, yeah, how.
And there's a lot that comes into play that people don't think about too. Like you're talking about the venting. Depending on the unit, some of them are they've been installed so close to that back wall.
Yep.
And they're not, if it's in a slide out, so slide out, think about the room that you have. They're trying to put that refrigerator far back as possible in that slide out, and they'll put 2 vents on to let the heat escape out the top vent, where your traditional refrigerator escaped out through the roof.
Yep.
So if you have an older RV and you still have the original like roof style to let the heat out, it's a good idea once in a while to pop that cover off, make sure there's no bird's nests or nothing that's blocking that debris or anything that's got in there, packed in there from squirrels or rodents or whatever.
Yep.
But it's the same thing in the slide outs.
Yep. And that'll also give you the opportunity to look down in there and see if any insulation has come in. And and I've seen units where I'm sure they went down the line. Some kid was in there installing certain things. He saw this big open pocket and he's inserting insulation in other places. He's going, "Oh, wow," and shove that back in full of insulation. And that, what brings up another good point is that if you do choose to go and travel down the road and you want to cool your unit, I've seen a lot of people, instead of using the propane side of it, got an extra battery. And I just see somebody did this here and used an inverter and ran it on the AC side, inverting going through. And the thing that happens is when you're driving down the road, your engine alternator is going to help charge your house batteries, keep them charged up. So, there are ways around it. Yeah. So let's back up here. We missed a couple of.
Then now we've got the newer refrigerators that are just 12 volt only.
Right.
Don't even operate off of 110 or.
So Barbara says we're seeing a lot of mixed messages about slide toppers recommended for large slides, pros and cons. What happens in high winds? Also, read some don't have spring locks. What are your thoughts on the slide toppers?
Yeah, so I love slide out toppers. I actually bought a thermal camera and I'm doing a test on some now where if the thickness of the roof on any slide out is usually about 1.5 inches thick.
If that.
If that sometimes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Usually plywood.
Yeah. And so basically when I describe slide out toppers, and I'm going to pull my cell phone here. If this is my room that's traveling in and out, I have an inner sill. I have an outer sill on my roof ledge. Then I have my wiper that's actually wiping back and forth. Exactly. And so then I have side sills on the sides of it. And so now with a topper, I'm protecting the top of my roof surface. It's like being outside with an umbrella in the heat. So I'm reducing the temperature inside the room as well as in the rain or snow. I mean, the rain, even if the water pulls up, it's not going to hurt it. Those are spring rolled, so it's going to lay down anyways. I've had pictures of people that sent them to me with snow on them. They went up there, knocked the snow off, and rolled it right back up, no problem.
Yep.
But you're protecting the wiper sill from the sun. You're protecting both of, if there's 2 seams, you're protecting both of the seams that run lengthwise of it. You're protecting the end seams, one on each end. So there's a lot of benefits to have it. When I say seams, I'm talking about the T-flange that's on the face of the slide out. So when it compresses against the wall, that will tend to walk. And when it walks, it damages the seal that's on the slide out roof.
Right. Even your side L panels,
yep.
Those are sealed. And the more they are exposed to the sun, the more they're going to dry out and chance of leak. The biggest thing I've seen them, I love slide toppers. And, I do this in my seminar. There's a lot of things that are left out because of price points. You see 2 units sitting side by side and one's $10,000 more than the other. You hear somebody say, well, that's because it's a Winnebago or it's because it's a Monaco. You pay for the name. That's not true. And Winnebago has always put the awnings, which she's calling slide toppers, and their awnings on the slide rooms as they come out. One of the things it does, it helps keep it sealed. It helps with less water penetration. The less moisture you can get in there, the better, no matter how good of a seal you have. But the biggest thing that we found is that when you let that slide room sit out and you're camping and you go to break camp, you better get up on top of that slide room and clean off any sticks or acorns or debris that might have fallen on that if you don't have the topper. We put the toppers on those strictly or mainly to keep all that stuff off, because if that's up there and you bring that slide room in, you're going to tear this thing up right away. And then you're going to have constant moisture problems. You don't have, you don't have to have that topper on there to keep the debris off. But every time you break camp, you're going to have to bring a ladder out, get up there, try to figure out a way to, so now you look at a fifth wheel, and Chuck just saw one or talked to somebody that 2-3 weeks ago bought a fifth wheel with 6 slides. Well, now all of a sudden you talk about $800 an awning times 6. That's where you see those price points, and you have to decide, is it worth it? I would always put a slide on. That's to me, that is the best way to keep that room protected in so many ways.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I try to always say, stick with the same brand of awning that you have. So if you have an LCI awning, go with the LCI slide out topper. But I like the LCI slide out toppers. They're really, priced reasonably. And so, think about which room is more important to you. I would say if you're going to do them, like say if they have 4 or 5 or 6 slide out rooms, so some have 6 slide out rooms now, I would do like the living rooms first. Again, it's going to reduce the heat. When I get to the point where I'm going to send out that article, you'll see the pictures of with it and without it. And it's ridiculous. I mean, we're talking 20, 30 degrees difference. Having one.
No, it makes a difference. So the next question comes in from Todd. Hey, Todd. They just bought a generator, 3,500 watt dual fuel inverter generator. Do I need to use our EMS surge protector when we use it? Thank you.
I would.
Go ahead.
I just said I would.
Yeah.
I'm a big surge protector guy. I like the Watchdogs. On the repair shop or dealership side of it, for you guys that are watching, any surge guard is better than no surge guard at all. So what I want you to kind of think of is we've all plugged in like too many sets of Christmas tree lights and, pop, and something went out, right? So whether you made a mistake or there was a voltage issue or a spike, if it damaged anything in the coach, which happens all the time, you're taking out, your microwave, your ACs, your start run capacitors, you're taking out your converters, your anything that's plugged in, all your TVs, anything that's plugged into the 110 side, the refrigerator PC board. So the problem that I experience with it is for people that don't invest in one of those and use it. If they have a unit that's too old, like say the fireplace is discontinued, that size, or the stereo is discontinued, or the microwave is discontinued, right? The insurance company will pay us to remove and replace it, but they're only going to allow us the time for that size for size unit. If I have to make any alterations, cabinetry, because it's too small, too large, they don't pay for that. It's, an hour out, and here's what we're allowing you for that appliance. And, if it was $500, back in 2019, and now it's $700, 2023.
You're cheap.
Yeah. I'm just throwing an example, but you know what I mean? It's basically, and
also you got to remember that just because it's an inverter generator, all that does is give you clean sine wave power rather than, the power it's designed to run power tools and lights and stuff like that. You still could get low voltage. You still could get high voltage, whether it's a surge or anything. You don't know exactly what that generator, and I'm assuming the way he stated it is this is a portable generator that he's going to plug into it at some point in time. If you already have that surge protector, I would use it. I would not chance the lows and the highs, and that tells you exactly where you're at. And most of them, like the one I just had here, this happens to be a surge guard, and it used to be TRC. It's now Southwire has purchased them. This is a fairly old unit that I've used, and I think Watchdog's a great one. The only thing I would recommend is when you're looking at a surge protector on the highs and lows that shuts off, just make sure it resets itself. There are some very inexpensive ones out there. When they trip, they're done. Some of them you can send to the factory.
The only one we sell is the Watchdog.
Yep.
And a couple reasons on that. They're lifetime warranted. They're the only ones that have the surge that's replaceable. So the discs that are inside that can pop, whatever the number is, 10 times, 20
The
times.
jewels.
Yeah, the joules. They're replaceable. And then if there's two different versions of that. There's an EPO, which is an electronic cutoff, and basically a non-EPO, which is your cheaper one. But they both connect to the Wi-Fi on your phone or Bluetooth on your phone. So you can see what they're doing. You can actually be setting in your coach, or say you had it parked outside your house, Dave, and you had somebody staying in it, kids or something, and they were being too loud and you want to just be funny with them. If you had the EPO, you can go on your phone and shut the power off. You can kill it. You can also set it for different ranges if you have electronics or computers and you don't want it to go.
My dad would have loved to have that feature to shut the power off of us boys.
Yeah.
We had a lot of power. So, okay, let's we just saw Doug said hello right here. Hi, Doug. How you doing? Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining. Yeah.
Bill King, is it okay to use Dicor on a TPO roof? We had a Grand Design Solitude first purchase that we were told to only use Alpha System sealant. And I'm sure Alpha System, or the dealer that sold Alpha System, said to only use Alpha Systems. But what's your thought?
So for California, the Alpha sealant will not stick to the roofs, and it does not self-level. So if you came in here and you were under insurance, or you were paying cash, or we were doing a warranty through Grand Design, we will not put that on. It's just, it doesn't, whatever the chemical in it, Dave, I'm sure you probably know, I'm just going to call it solvents. It's not causing it to adhere to the rubber, and then it's not self-leveling. So it's kind of like using non-sag on it, but then the non-sag not binding to the roof or the moldings.
Yeah.
They cannot tell you. When I've talked to the reps, one of them was named David Parker, and I called both Alpha and Dicor. This was years ago when this first came out, and said, hey, am I going to be in any issue if I don't use your product? Am I ruining a warranty? Am I causing an issue? And neither one of them can legally say you cannot use the product. Plus, if you're the everyday average person, they're not going to know the difference between Alpha TPO and Dicor TPO. Right. They look the same.
Yep. So what's the product that you use? We out here have been using the New Flex. That's what Winnebago is pushing on the 311 RV, and it is designed for this one is designed for fiberglass. Yeah, because that's what Winnebago uses on there.
You only can get that color in white out here in California.
That's what you were saying that the other day.
So Dicor and Alpha both have every color out there. It may be different in different states. I would think that when they change it all the way across the board. Camco has a self-leveling sealant as well, and it's chemically the same as the Alpha sealant, and it just doesn't adhere. Yeah.
And what product did you say you were using?
We just use strictly the Dicor. So I won't even use the not that I'm LCI or mad at them or anything like that. They have a ton of great products, but something, the government made them change, like the glue. So all the, for your Grand Design owners that are watching, and we have our own Grand Design group that has 8,000 members in it. We were having a problem, Dave, with the rubber roof was not adhering to the roof. The glues weren't as sticky. And so for us that have been in the industry, like I'm 25 years, and Dave, I forgot how many years you're, 30 plus or
107.
170. Yeah. Since Jesus lost his sandals, right?
Well, yeah. No, I went to school with his dad. That's all.
But, we know you can peel off a roof that's 20 plus years old, and it's still so sticky. If you walked up there with your tennis shoes stick, and you pull your foot right out of your shoe. So the Alpha roof glue wasn't holding. And what I seen on that particular unit, on the Grand Design units a few years back, they were over gluing the roof, trying to compensate for it because they were thinking that they just didn't put enough glue on it. Well, then that glue was actually causing the OSB to dry rot and come up and get chippy looking and make footprints in it when you'd walk on it. But the glue wasn't as sticky enough, and then the materials were blowing up. We have some videos on them where, I don't know if you check that out, we have videos of actual units in travel with it just flapping.
Yeah.
So by all means, for Bill, use Dicor. If you have any questions or you need help with it or you're concerned about the spot, you can use the Dicor over the top of the Alpha. So if the Alpha cylinder is shrunk up or cracked and you just want to wipe it down and go over the full surface area.
Yeah.
Don't just take it and put a little line on it. Go over the whole perimeter of it.
Yep.
Thicken it up. The thicker, the better.
Yep. The wider. So what's your thoughts? And so I'm assuming when he's asking on this here, it's just on the seals around the edges, not a full cover stuff. So what's your opinion on a Turnabon?
So Turnabon, again, it different areas of the country, but California gets a lot of heat. So in my area, we don't, we see snow and stuff up in Tahoe and Reno and whatnot, but we don't have any snow here. It rains, but it doesn't rain ridiculously. I don't really like it. I like it for a side out application. I like it if I was in transit and I tore my roof. I like it for the little trick things I do. I'll put it in the rain gutters to make a seam or different little applications, but I won't put that on a roof. If you put it on a roof, it's on there for eternity.
You can find just as many people that love it as hate it.
Yeah. The only issue I see with it is, if it's as thin as a credit card. So when you bond it to the roof, we're going to say this piece of paper, it basically makes like a little journal. So when it shrinks up vertically, shrinks up both directions, and then it'll make a little toothpick-sized journal, and the water will work its way underneath there. Mm-hmm. And if you're going over something that's not a smooth surface, like a molding or there's screws or something on it, it's not being able to be compressed 100%. Yeah. So there is some kind of void or gap in it.
There are some places for it. Where I found it works the best? If you need to divert your condensation from your air conditioner, you buy a small little plastic bead, and then you put that over top of it, and it will create a channel to run your condensation away from your door.
So if you're going to put it on your coach, seal around.
Oh, we get Dustin froze up on it. So seal around something. So we might have to have Dustin jump out. Are you there?
Yep, I'm back.
There you are. All right. So that's how he goes to the bathroom. He puts himself on hold, runs to the bathroom, comes back. Man, you were quick.
I shaved my head too. I was there.
That's good. Okay, we're going to go to the next one. Bill has another one. We have a gas electric fridge, recently installed lithium batteries and an inverter. Is it safe to run my fridge off the inverter when traveling instead of the propane system? And we were just talking about that. That is, because and the way your gas electric refrigerator should work, the typical way is when you put it on auto, then that wants to run on electricity. So anytime there's an electrical current available, 120 volt to that, it will stay on the electrical side of it. If for any reason it shuts off, then it automatically shifts over to LP. And what a lot of people will do when they do something like you've got going on here, they would literally turn the gas valve off, so that it can't switch over to LP.
Something to cap on for everybody watching about the fridges. Most refrigerators are going to have a 3 tri-light system. So on the propane, if you were driving with it on propane, if that flame blows out more than 3 times, it's going to shut itself off. It's going to go into a check mode. The other thing I was going to say is on the inverters, that's fine. But most refrigerators nowadays they have 3 different ways of killing the power to it. There's a thermal cutoff that's on the chamber itself. So if it gets too hot, it's going to shut itself off. So whether that be on propane or 12 volt, if that cooling unit gets too hot, it's going to shut itself off and kill the power to itself. There's also a thermal fuse that's usually located near the chamber, so that if a flame came out and melted the plastic, just like on your water heaters, that's going to kill the power to it as well.
Yep.
And then the last one is the little box like that customer showed you, that Defender that she talked about. Mm-hmm. If it senses the voltage is not correct, it'll shut itself off.
Yep. One thing to keep in mind too, and you didn't say what kind of rig that you have or the style
Grand Design.
On Bill King's was?
Yeah, he in the upper portion of Salt.
Okay. Just verify, the Mercedes B vans and Class C's that are out, they have a real high voltage alternator because they got to charge the extra battery in that, and that charges back to the charging system. And if you have a lithium battery, and again, it goes higher than 14.4, and just verify. Mike Sokol did an excellent article. Look in the rvtravel.com to see what he was talking about, the charge that you're getting from your tow vehicle back to it. So I don't know what size alternators in your truck and Grand Design. I'm sure it's a pretty big one. They make a DC to DC converter, pretty inexpensive. It just goes inline back there just to make sure that you regulate what's going back to that. And again, I'm not the expert on that. I just know Mike has really hit that hard on verifying when you look to do that. So, all right, let's go to the next one here. We have Michael. Hey, Michael, when I had a new fuel pump installed in my Class A, they raised the rear end up to get to the gas tank. I forgot to turn off the refrigerator. It fried the refrige, and I had to get a new cooling unit installed. Yes, it must be level. And typically when, and Dustin, you mentioned the driving up the hill and down the hill, it usually doesn't do it right away. I mean, it's not something that happens within an hour, 2 hours type of thing. And normally when you're driving up a mountain, even if you're on a 6% or higher grade with that, you've got enough movement out of that RV that it kind of sloshes things around a little bit more. And you're normally not driving 3 or 4 hours at a time straight up a hill. So if they raise the back,
unless you're going to Tahoe.
Unless you're going to Tahoe. If you're driving in Iowa, you're not going up a hill for 3 or 4 steps.
Maybe an hour, maybe.
Not even an hour. That's straight across. But so they must have had your rig up for quite some time when that happens. But that's an issue with those absorption refrigerators, and people don't realize it. And that's, in my opinion, why they're getting a bad rap.
Going back to the gas stop real quick.
Yep.
Something to think about is, these go on the propane tanks for the fifth wheel or travel trailers. You would generally want to. What we were talking about for you guys that weren't here earlier is this is a device that has to get depressed. So if you can see it puncturing down, what that does is it cuts off the propane if there was a leak. So all these refrigerators that are installed in slide outs all have rubber hoses. If you have a quick connect on your coach and you have a barbecue going, fire, flame pit, a lantern, whatever, and so let's say your dog ran by it or some little kid ran by it, or you just tripped over it. If that breaks that pigtail off, this will cut off the gas immediately. Where if not, you're going to have to run over to that propane tank and turn it off. So think of that if you're driving for some reason, if something vibration, a hose came loose, something chewed through something got caught or pinched on the slide out, and you did have that refrigerator on, that's another reason why to invest in one of those gas stops.
Yep. So Bill,
protection.
That's another question. So do I need to make sure I get the Dicor specific for TPO, or can I use the regular Dicor? I would get the one, and it's been a little confusing because, first it came out with EPDM, and, that was really rubbery stuff. And there was a specific one for EPDM, and then TPO came out, and there's even different types of TPO. It's kind of I wouldn't say a generic term, but then now they're calling PVC that's out there. So, if you got a Grand Design, I would specifically, they got the Alpha systems. And I know the last time I talked to Alpha, the technician I talked to said it was okay to use Dicor stuff. But then, of course, he's not in the sales side. And sometimes they get a little proprietary in what they want you to use. But I would
anywhere you go, like any repair shop, any dealership, any mobile guy, they're all going to keep the standard 501 LSW is the part number for standard white Dicor. That's for EPDM. We put it on TPO all the time.
Okay.
The only difference is, again, is the solvent in it will cause a little bit of a gassing. So if you put it on too thick, what it does, Dave, is it's basically making a vapor. And it's because it's solvent based, it's adhering to the product, etching it to it, but it's causing like a rippling or rubbing on the rubber.
Okay.
That's going to go back down after a little while and go away. When it gets hot or you go up there and dries and you rub on it, that's going to be gone. It does that no matter what. Even the other TPO versions do that as well. You put it on too thick, it'll gas up. So it's not going to hurt it.
Okay. And here's just a diagram kind of showing what that construction is. And I know a lot of you guys are on your phone, but you can see how the peel up, and almost everybody that I know of uses a, either a plywood chipboard basically, or Luan, which is all very thin and very porous. So, okay. The next question that we've got came from Dan here. So he's got Dan, thanks
Dan.
comment. He's got a 2012 Keystone with 2 slides. He's a newbie owner. Problem is the bottom of the slide will not go out. The top of the slide will not go out when the bottom does. I can pull the top and it will go.
Okay.
So
I got it.
Yep.
You want it?
Nope. Go ahead.
So the top of the bedroom slide out basically is hanging up, right? So again, there's products for the wiper seals. I use a lot of Protectol. So go up, check your wiper seal, make sure that your wiper seal is clean, make sure that the top of that roof is clean. If the top of the roof is dirty, and if the wiper seal is not been conditioned, the conditioner basically makes it be slippery. So it's allowing it to sweep on the top of the room. So if the roof surface is dirty, and if the wiper seal is dirty, and either surface are dry, so you could use 303 protectant on the roof membrane, whether it's TPO or EPDM. That's going to make it be slick, as well as the wiper seal. And so if you're having to like give it a little push to help it go, sometimes if the room's closed for a long period of time, it'll just naturally stick from the condensation and stuff built up in the coach, just the temperature differences. But check the wiper seal, clean the roof, make sure none of the sealants have bled out, any putties or anything that's stuck to that seal that's causing it to stick to it and drag. And then look underneath to make sure that nothing's coming loose. Make sure that the rams and the rails are all good. Make sure that the T-flanges are coming loose as well.
Yep.
Anything you extra recommend?
Make sure it's level and it's stabilized. That is the worst thing for slide rooms, because if you are not level and you're not stabilized, that chassis was going to twist. It's going to rack a little bit. And when that happens, the sidewall will rack a little bit. And so you could have seals that are sticking a little bit, but you could also have some resistance, and it doesn't take much. 2012, I would say Keystone, you probably have
the underbed rail system
here, underneath system in there. And usually that's going to be,
I've seen those rip away from the walls too.
Yeah. Hydraulics a better system. The other thing I've seen is where they've gone in and out so many times. And I think I had a question this morning on it where somebody said they're very concerned that the stop on their slide room is the flange of the room. So it hits and it's getting looser and looser and looser. So you got trim pieces and all that stuff that, can start to get misaligned. And then the other thing is look at your room. Take measurements from one side to the other. And if you're out of, let's say this side is 2 inches and this side is 2.5 from the opening to the room, your room is shifted. And now you're putting too much resistance on this side of that. And, just check, because there's adjustments on those. You look when that, if you're using either, like I said, it probably is a power gear, because I think that was before Lippert got into too many of the slide rooms. I don't think Keystone ever used an HWH system.
No.
If it's a smaller one, it could be a Quickie or a BAL cable slide. But the electric slides are just, they just don't have the power if that room is got any resistance. So like you said, look underneath, make sure that room, they're designed to sit on those rollers.
Make sure the rollers are clean.
Yeah, and they are not designed for the motors to have to carry any weight with those,
So Dan, I got a video on our YouTube channel that shows just some stuff to look at on a slide out room, and there's pictures in our different picture albums that show rollers. Make sure that the rollers aren't like embedded from the brackets, like the brackets aren't bent. If you can go underneath and, we use jacks and forklifts and stuff to kind of pick up the weight just a little bit off that room. You can see if those rollers turn, make sure there's nothing underneath, peel that wiper seal out, make sure there's nothing underneath there. Another thing you could check is take everything out from underneath the bed, take the access panel out, make sure that everything is secured in place, because a lot of times those are just put in with self-tap screws. And again, it's just into real thin OSB, 3/4 inch wood or 1/2 inch wood, and that stuff will come loose and just jar.
Yep.
So, just go back through it all and double check it.
You could bring that room up to what we use is I can't remember what you call them. They're adjustable jacks like you would have in a basement. You know how you get the pipe and it comes up. It's like a stationary floor jack, a foundation jack. Yeah. And then we'll use that and a small little pipe bottle jack or floor jack. So we get it real close and then just bring it up, and you can get that up where you can see right through that centerpiece. I've seen people even take 2x4 and put a T at the top of the bottom carpet on it, and then jam it. Just wedge it up in the top of it.
We take some 4x4s here at the shop and have wrapped in carpet, and we'll take the forklift and pick them up, or table
Most
jacks.
People don't have a forklift at home.
Tractor,
kids,
couple kids.
My dad would have tried that. Yeah, I still remember the old way of adjusting. Now you go in and you move your antenna. In fact, you don't even have to move it anymore. You touch a button and it finds all the stations for you. And the way we did it when I was young is we had a 4-story house, basement, 2 stories, an attic, and then the antenna on the top. So I would go on the peak and stand up there, and my brother would stand on top of the porch in the front. My other brother would stand down on the bottom with a window open. My dad would be watching the TV and he'd go, a little bit more to the left. That's how we adjusted our antenna to get better reception. So things have changed quite a bit. So the next one we have, I think Bill came back. He said he did do the DC to DC charger. That's great because you have 220 amp alternators. That's the thing that we're looking at. And so he replaced the separate DC to DC with a 4-gauge cable. Do I need to disconnect the 10-gauge 12-volt line and the 7-pin connector? No, I do not believe you have to do that because you're getting the proper voltage going through it. So that's my understanding from what Mike Sokol did. You might want to do a little bit of research, maybe even send Mike a question on that. He is the expert in it. I have not gotten too much into the DC to DCs just because of the so much information on solar panels and lithium that we've started to get into and dissect. And my head I can only absorb so much. So, all right. This one is from Larry Fuchs. And it's kind of ironic. I had a intern from Waldorf College work video with me named Ian Fuchs, and phenomenal kid, wonderful kid. That's not a name you run into too often, especially up here in Norwegian country. Everything's Janssen. Newmar Baystar Sport 2015. And the voltage meter over the door, which Newmar installs with the unit and shows chassis and house battery charge, and a Morningstar solar charger with its own meter, often not, but not always, do not agree. The Newmar will read 0.6 volts to 1 volt. I've checked the house batteries with the meters. The thing about those, the meters that have the lights and stuff like that, do not trust those. You want to put in a meter, and I have one right here. That
I haven't heard anybody say a bird in a while. Bidirectional relay.
Oh yeah. So this happens to be one from Go Power, and it is just a normal meter that's going to be put in that you will have to get a stint. And so if you have, I'm assuming you've got solar panels, the charge. I don't know if you have lithium batteries in it or not, but that
a unit that old, he's going to have at least, 2 coach batteries, 4 inverter batteries, And
Yeah,
then
Newmar normally used 4 6-volt batteries. So they take two,
yeah,
hook them in series, and then they take those two banks and hook them together. Now, 2015, I would bet money you don't have original batteries in that unit, because they would have come with lead acid batteries, and chances are they're going to be, hey, is that Zach? No.
no. So if anybody that RVs pretty much has a dog, we have two. This is Hitch. He's a Boston Terrier. If I can get him to look at the camera. He's about 7 months old. They were whining at the door because everybody's left here at the shop. So they were like, Dad, let me in. So that's Hitch. And then our other dog is RV. So ARVIE. And we'll give them their 30 seconds of camera time. So this is RV. She's about 1.5 years old. And they are here at the shop every day. And RV and Hitch, right?
Yep. Okay. Well, and just to elaborate on Larry's here, I guess for some reason I thought he was mentioning the light bar meter, and he's not. He's saying the Newmar reads 0.6 and the Morningstar. I would agree with the Morningstar one because you will see and it all depends on the electronics and some of these meters and stuff like that and how close they're going to read. But the Morningstar is going to be a lot newer. I'm assuming. In there, and I would definitely go with that. The other thing is get a multimeter and just go in and you can buy a really inexpensive multimeter. Here's the one I got at Harbor Freight on sale for $3.95, and I do have a good Napa one. I do not have a Fluke one because I end up leaving them all over the place, and I'd rather leave a $3.95 one than I would a $395 one.
Yeah.
The thing is with a multimeter in an RV, unless you're doing what Dustin's doing in certain applications, you don't have to be so specific in the voltage and amps and all that kind of stuff that some of the guys buying the more expensive stuff do. So go ahead.
I was just gonna say, Larry, my advice too would be, cycle the batteries often, drain them down, charge them up, check the water level on all of them, check all the connections, make sure they're all tight. Being that it's 7, almost 8 years old, if the terminal ends are not a closed in, or even if they are, occasionally check the connections on those because the wires can corrode inside. So don't be afraid if you had to slice the jacket on it and give it a little peel and see how the wires are. Make sure that everything's charging like it's supposed to, because maybe one of the sensors or one of the wires that's reading to it could be getting corroded. Maybe if that's why they're not getting the right voltage readings. Check the gauges on the back of the wall. Again, those walls are, I think on the Newmars, I think they were 1 3/4 inch or up to 2-inch thicknesses, depending on the thickness of the coach. Some of them are like usually
back wall or front wall or side
wall. So he's probably got it in the wall, like the old Intelitech style. So if they've knocked out the styrofoam in the wall and just embedded that controller, yeah, exactly. So if they've notched out, Dave, the styrofoam in the wall and embedded the switch into it, a lot of times they'll get corroded from the condensation that builds up in it.
Yeah. So usually it's
1 3/4
1.5
Yeah.
It's 1.5 block foam, yeah. and then you've got about an eighth of an inch of Luan and fiberglass, yeah, on the outside, and less than that on the inside. So yeah, and most of them, I'm pretty sure what Newmar does is they lay down the fiberglass first, and then they have some adhesion that goes over it. Then they do the Luan. Now they're doing Asdel,
yeah,
on it. Then they lay the framework, aluminum framework on top of that, and then they fill the holes with the. So they don't really route out the. Winnebago does it different, and what they do is they will lay down their block foam insulation, and it's already routed where their framework's going to go into. Yeah. And so, normally you'd see this whole thing with the framework, and there's no insulation between wherever there's framework at. everybody has their opinions. Winnebago thinks it's
Vacuum bonded, yeah.
Typically, what I see is some of the, Newmar makes a great product. In fact, Winnebago owns Newmar now.
Winnebago owns Grand Design now too.
Yep. And
so Grand Design, same thing. Their wall thickness is, 1.5 inches or 1.75 inches.
Yep.
But don't forget about taking away that little bit for the paneling and stuff and the fiberglass. Yep.
So Larry says he's got 2 lead acid batteries, and I would imagine those have been replaced at some point in time. So anyway, we've got enough. If anybody's got a question, I'm going to go to one more that came in here. Let's see what I got for this one. I'm going to go to the next one. So here's a person, and I posted this in the Ask Dave section. I think it came out today. I'm not sure. That I've read articles stating that gray water from a kitchen or a bath, sink, or shower might be routed to a black water tank rather than the gray water. Is that legal? I would think that there would be a check valve of sorts if it is. And do you know what my rig has? So go ahead with what you've seen, Dustin.
So if it has like a toy hauler, like say a Grand Design fifth wheel, or different brand, it doesn't have to be Grand Design, but if the bathroom sink and toilet combo are way at the far end of the coach, it's possible that they just use the same tank.
Yep.
It basically, it saves them money instead of separating, because you're not really gonna, if they do have 2 gray tanks, it's because either the kitchen's tied into it and that outside sink as well as the toilet. So now you'd have a reason to have 2 tanks.
Yep.
Then, of course, the bathroom sink and the shower would be going into the gray tank up front. So most of the bigger units are going to have 2 grays and 2 blacks.
Yep.
Now, if they have 2 bathrooms, but
yeah, and what I told him is that his comment is that legal, and that's a pretty loose term when it comes in the RV industry. There are not the same codes and standards that you have in building, construction of business industry and residential. There are codes. RVIA sets the codes and standards. They use NFPA for fire, and then they have electrical codes and they have plumbing codes, but nowhere near what you see in the automobile industry or in the residential construction. And the classic example is a friend of mine owns an electrical business, and he is a certified bonded electrician, and he bought a toy hauler that he allowed us to do a bunch of work on. And every time we went in and pulled something apart and he saw this cluster of wires coming in and just tied together, so he goes, well, that's not the code. And I said, no, there's no code when it comes to that stuff there, like you have to do. And so we're getting our Academy Award winning wrap up. I'd like to think, no, I still have people to thank. That's my
dad was a general contractor, and his goal for me was to go to school to become an architect or engineer. And so I did a lot of those classes and a lot of the ICBO classes in college. Yeah. And RV is a totally different world.
And so here
that's why I love it.
They try, I don't know of any shower that's ever routed into a black water tank, except for some of the small vehicles that everything goes to one tank. Yeah. That you do have some of those that
like on just pleasure ways.
Yeah. They're automatic. A lot of your pop-ups do that. They got the little canister that pulls out. But you think about these bath and a half units that are coming out. So you've got the big bathroom in the back with the shower and the toilet and the sink and all that stuff. And then up in the front, you've got a half bath, which is just a toilet and a sink. They're not going to take that sink drain and run it clear back to the black water tank through all the outriggers and everything back there. So that's probably going to drain into that. And that P-trap, that's why it's so important that when you get to a destination, I always throw a little water down the P-trap, because by the time you drive and you slosh that thing, your P-trap underneath the drain, it comes down, and it should be called an S-trap because it comes up and comes back down. But it is designed to have this little loop where water sits down in, and that's what keeps the odors from coming back up from your tank, whatever it happens to be. So there's no real check valve that I know of.
There's those white-looking ABS that has the duct bill.
Yep.
Basically in the pipe, so it's water goes through it, it opens, and when it doesn't, it closes. they'll use a lot of those on the low profile showers and
Right.
stuff in them too. But
Yeah, but
normally those as well. They get nasty.
Normally you don't see that on the drain for a sink though.
Yeah, not on the sink.
So that P-trap, by the time you get to the campground, is sloshed around enough. There's probably no water in that P-trap. So now if you do have a sink that drains into the black water tank, once you get to the campground, throw some water in that sink. Just get some down in that P-trap, because that's the only, check valve you basically have. But he asked, how can you tell? Most of them don't give you good diagrams. Most of them you can't find out where it's at. So you pretty much have to just run water down a sink and see what tank fills up, and that will tell you where it's going. So anyway, we went to 701. We appreciate all the questions and the people who have come back. Donna and Dan.
I want to thank you all for coming. Yeah,
Barbara. I said Donna. Barbara. She was the first one here. Tell your friends. We're going to do this next week again. Hopefully Zach will be back. We'll make him wear one of those protective helmets from now on.
Get him a football helmet when he comes in.
At the NBA football, the new designed ones. So anyway, we appreciate everybody coming out. You notice that Dustin and I still have our Halloween masks on. So that's better take them off now, Dustin. We're scaring people. But we appreciate you coming out, and have a great rest of the week, and great time RVing.
Travel safe, everybody. Thanks for joining.